Hi guys, how are you? Well, I still being a little bit bad, but the next class I promise you that I will be all the session. Right now I'm still feeling a little bit sick. Yesterday was not a good day, as you know. And well, let's continue. Today we're going to see something about the British Empire in India. As we already know, practically the most of information about the colony and imperialism in Asia have been placed in China and India, but well, also some countries in Middle East were involved. But well, let's continue. The British Empire in India was called the British Raj, which lasted from 1858 to 1947. There's some places were being occupied by the British Army during the colony. Great Britain. Well, just as a background, 33 millions of kilometers of colonies of the Great Britain Empire, 45 millions of inhabitants, 450. It was the fourth part of the world's population. All the colonies that belonged to the Great Britain were Malta, Gibraltar in Europe, also Malta in Europe, Singapore, Hong Kong, Saint Helena, Corfu, Islas Jónicas, Mauricio Island, Sierra Leone, Gambia, Antilles, Canada, India, South Africa, New Zealand, and Australia. All those places belong to the Great Britain Empire. India. In 1858, India formally became a British colony. It was considered the crown's most precious jewel because all the sources, all the wealth that could be taken from the place. It was a violent and repressive empire, supplier of raw materials such as cotton and salt. For example, in Madras, Goa and Bombay, there were a lot of salt fonts and mines. There is a little map where we could find with colors which were the possessions of Great Britain during the second half of the 19th century. For example, in blue, the Philippines still being Spanish possessions. The Netherlands had in Asia the possessions colored with pink, and well, just with purple, and the possessions colored by orange were belonging to the Great Britain. Why would British want India? Incredibly valuable for its workforce and raw materials. Tea, that as you know, it's one of the most common and popular things consumed in Great Britain. Indigo, the color. Coffee, cotton, jute, a raw material used for designing some clothes, and opium. British East India Company set up trading routes. The idea was not to depend as much as possible from China. The idea was to build its own empire in the territory of India. Mughal Empire was collapsing. The Mughal Empire was the one that happened before the British invasion. Also, the East India Company was a private company. It functioned like a copying government. For example, the East India Company had thousands of soldiers at their disposal. They manned forts. The company even set up courts and political offices. So let's understand how important, how powerful was the private industry during the colony in the second half of the 19th century. The companies, the enterprises had the opportunity to defend themselves using a type of soldiers, a type of armies. Just as the movie, I am always quoting this sentence, just as the movie of the Caribbean pirates did. Okay? Well, let's continue. Some things to know. India was a hotspot for trade from the late 1400 until mid of 1800s. The British East India Company was possibly the largest, most powerful private corporation in history. Also, the British East India Company was the biggest source for revenue for British economy. So, this is the point that must be considered for the next interpartial. The British East India Company was the biggest source for revenue for British economy. Just try to imagine how risky and dangerous could be for the Royal Crown to lose the territory of India. They were depending absolutely from the India resources. Some economic impacts on India. And here we have again the map of India, because now we are just detailing which were the British East India Company territories controlled by and the Indian states, the boundary of present day in India. India was only allowed to produce raw materials that could be used by the British. That's something similar to the Opium War that we seen in the last class. India's only option was to purchase finished products from the British. So, let me explain you something. In Mexico we had like a similar case belonging to the free treatment we have with the United States. As you know, we send to the United States some raw materials, and those raw materials are just fused with other ones, are mixed, and then the result of the production give us clothes, electronic devices, and other issues that are very useful for us. In the other side, during the second half of the 19th century, the Indians were producing only raw materials that must be purchased by the British, and then the British give them back those raw materials transformed in other issues finished that depended directly for this kind of trading. So it was very unfair. I send you raw materials because it's mandatory, and I am forced also to buy you the raw materials that you received and then you transform. Economic impacts on India. Well, the British also greatly restricted India's ability to farm for food. So I'm not also sending you my results of productions. I'm not only sending to you the products and processes. I am also forcing you to control your feeding ways, your feeding funds. India was forced to produce cash crops from the British to trade such as tea, indigo, dye coffee, cotton, and opium. This policy caused issues with famine in much of India. Cash crops. Do you know what is a cash crop? A cash crop is exactly what its name suggests. It's a crop of plants that is only grown to make money. Cash crops. Coffee, tea, tobacco, and sugar are also major cash crops. Through the world could also be plants used for drugs or making clothing. Many sovereign Indian kingdoms were destroyed. So imagine they had their own traditions, and when the British invaded the territory, forcing them to adopt their own traditions, a lot of kingdoms and states that were primitive, just for calling in a way, were destroyed, were avoided. The British takeover. In 1858, the Government of India Act passed on the India territories from the British East Indian Company to the Royal Monarchy of Britain. From then until 1947, with the participation of the Mahatma Gandhi, Britain would consider India its top colony. And here we have the beautiful sample of life of Mahatma Gandhi. He born on October 2nd in 1869. As we knew, he studied in England. In England, even though he was excommunicated from his castle for leaving India. Upon his return he would emerge as an outstanding political figure who advocated change in India. He would be given the name of Mahatma. It means great soul. He led the Indian independence movement and encouraged the protesting technique called satyagraha, a peaceful civil disobedience. One example of this was to protest the high salt taxes imposed by the British. Gandhi led thousands of people to make salt from the ocean. This was known as the Salt March. As I already said, the Great Britain controlled most of the sources were exploited by any people inside India. For this reason, the materials that were imported to the territory of India came from England, and also the sources that were exported from India goes uniquely and specifically to England. So it was very unfair. People didn't have the opportunity to produce by themselves the things and issues they should consume because they were forced to consume British products. Mahatma Gandhi forced the economy, giving to the people the opportunity to acting in a rebel way, consuming products produced by their own. Then we have Nehru, born in November 14 in 1889. 100 years before I come into the world as your teacher. As Gandhi's younger contemporary, he was chosen by Gandhi to be his successor. On August 15, 1947, Nehru stepped up to the first Prime Minister of independent India. He supported the partition of two separate states of Pakistan and India, one for Hindus and one for Muslims. We should remember that the north of India was overall Muslim, and the other side, talking about the central part and the south, was mainly Indian. They had their own traditions. Nehru governed India until his death in May 27 in 1964. Jinnah and the Muslim League. Formed in 1906, the Muslim League played a major role in the formation of Pakistan as a Muslim state. Jinnah served as a leader in the Muslim League from 1913 until India's independence. Jinnah was an advocate of two-nation theory, which opposed Muslim-Hindi unity and proposed a separate nation for the two cultures. Two identity positive and negative aspects of the British colonialism in India. The British held much of the political and economical power. The British restricted India-owned industries such as cotton textiles. We have already discussed it. Those were some negative issues. Other positive issues, because always we should have considering two sides of a face, the positive one and the negative one, the bright side and the dark side. Well, in the bright side, the railroads enabled India to develop a modern economy. The railroads were brand for the British Army and the British Empire. A modern road network, telephone and telegraph lines, bridges and irrigation canals enabled India to modernize. Sanitation and public health were improved. So those were some positive issues, the bright side of the street. Trace early national movements in India. Well guys, I'll let you these ones just for your general knowledge. The activity that we must do today is to make a conceptual map, a mind map about all the information we have seen already. Remember, the information must be graphic, and it's not mandatory to do it in general or trying to go deeper. It's in couples and you must upload it before 4 p.m. Thank you very much and have a beautiful weekend.